All right, last week when we talked to Larry Dallas, left some meat on the bone so that we could come back and do a part 2. And, as is the case sometimes when you start podcasts, like the conversation that happens before the podcast actually starts recording is like really good. And you're like, oh, I should have hit record 20 minutes ago. And that's kind of where we're at.
Yes.
And Larry was telling me how you remember the story from last week about him being on the 50 Cent reality show on MTV.
Yeah.
He actually got a talent agent thanks to meeting this person at the bar, got some headshots, and then got booked for Monday Night Raw before WrestleMania. And that is where I was like, you know what? Let's press record. So this is the WrestleMania in which Snooki had a match. And was this also, for some reason, I feel like one wrestler got pushed out of a WrestleMania match and was frustrated about it or something.
Was that the Snooki one?
Was that the Snooki one? I might be off on
I don't know. It might be the Snooki one. But yeah, so obviously I had a talent agent, and my look at the time, they needed people that looked very Jersey Shore. And they messaged me, they're like, hey, it's for WWE in Jersey. Like, would you be interested? I'm like, would I be interested? I'm like, I'll do this shit for free. Like, whatever. Yeah, man, let's go. And I went there, and they had to film like 3 segments. So this would be Snooki and Trish at the bar, and then Layla and Lay Cool would come out, and then I think that was segment 2 or 3 or whatever. That the big brawl happens. So it's so great. So Snooki's late coming in, right? And she's like pretty inebriated when she gets there. So the first scene.
So she's on brand, is what you're saying.
She's on brand for Snooks, yeah. So the first scene that we're on with this is I'm standing at the bar, and I grab my beer, and I go sit down at a table, and I have to sip the beer, and it zooms into them. Well, this took about 15 takes. So if you know anything about Hollywood, they now have given me 15 beers.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting at this bar, and this is take 1. And her best friend, did you ever watch Jersey Shore?
I loved the first 3 seasons of Jersey Shore. It's like some of the best reality TV ever.
So remember Ryder? Who was her best? Okay, so Ryder's here too. So Ryder's at the table with me. So I'm talking to Ryder. We ended up actually going on a date a month or 2 later after this. But Ryder's sitting there with me, so I'm just talking to her bullshitting. And Nicole sees me talking to her, and she comes up. She's like, "What's your name?" And I'm like, Larry. She's like, "I'm Nicole." I'm like, I know who you are. Whatever it is. So, but then I made another big faux pas. He's like, I'm gotta be. That Snooki WrestleMania was 2010. It had to be 2010, right?
I'll look it up, but yeah, keep
okay.
Going.
I mean, I'm 4 months into this, into being an on-screen character for Evolve. I don't even think the DVD came out of my debut. I'm nobody's. I'm so far from being anybody that I'm here on this moment or whatever. And when I was standing at the bar grabbing a beer to go, it was Trish and Snooks that were next to me. And I'm like, this is Trish Stratus is right next to me. This is a moment in life. And we remember Trish had that reputation of being the best female wrestler that we've seen in generations or whatever at the time, because she's actually athletic and put effort.
She turned into something when she was just a valet.
So I'm trying
This would have been WrestleMania 27. So this was The Rock's WrestleMania when he came back to host it before he did the 2 programs at Cena.
Yeah, so that might be 2011, maybe.
2011.
Maybe it's a year. Maybe it's a year. It's been a year I've been on camera then.
Yeah.
So, so I'm trying to be slick as hell, right? I'm thinking this in my head, but I want to look smart. So I go to her. I go. Because the Japanese women wrestlers were better, right? I go. You're my favorite American female performer. She looks at me. She goes, actually, I'm Canadian. And I'm like, yep, that's a full-blown LD moment there, screwing this whole thing up. But they did the 3 segments, whatever, was awesome. And I ended up the extras got taken on a bus from Manhattan to Jersey or whatever. And they had 2 wrestlers that were booked. One's a referee now for WWE. His name's Dan. He's the really tan referee. Really Italian-looking referee. He's on the main roster. And this guy, Justin Carino, were the real wrestlers that were the real extras that WWE booked. And then we were the rest of the paid TV actor extras. But I ended up instead of going back on the bus to Manhattan, mind you, I have no car. And there's no Uber yet. This is 2011 or whatever.
Yeah.
I stayed at the bar and hung out with like Ryder and Snooki for like another couple of hours, and like had no idea how I was getting home. Like had to take Jersey Transit, which I never take, to get to Manhattan. I had to figure out this whole like way of getting home, which is just another, one of me getting myself in situation stories. But yeah, that came from the acting agent. And the point of that, where I was going with that, was I got booked for an acting role once, because we were talking about acting and stuff like that before this.
Yeah.
And it's just, it was a PC Richard and Son commercial. And it was, they wanted me for this main part and speaking role. They gave me like all these lines. And this is where I like learned for the first time, like I suck with scripts. It's like why like my promos were always never as good as speakers I am. My promos were never good. But like me personally, just put a mic on, let me talk is very entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm like, everything just sounded forced and they gave me like 12 tries at this role, and they ended up booking me as like an extra part, so I got the payday. And I just remember being so bored on set. I'm like acting is the most boring thing in the world. I'm like, I never want to do this. Like, God bless The Rock, he's making millions. God bless Cena and Batista. Batista's the best actor out of the bunch.
Batista's amazing.
Which is another story for like another thing to dive into somewhere else. But Batista's the best actor. I've watched every Rock movie, but Batista's the best actor out of all three of them. Probably the best actor, wrestler turned actor ever. I thought acting was so boring. But having an acting agent actually got me booked as a WWE extra for like a $500 payday or whatever, which is actually fucking amazing.
We know that The Rock and John Cena, they had their issues. It seems like the issues have been cleared up. And I don't know if you follow the Fast and Furious franchise very closely, but they are both in the franchise.
Yes.
Rock is making his comeback to the franchise after being away.
And John's out now.
And John, we'll see, because
we'll see
because there's a moment where you think John's out, but many characters have been out before and they come back somehow.
Yeah, like Han.
So I wonder if we do get a Cena and Rock moment, which would be cool.
Yeah.
And then if we do, you got to get Batista booked for a cameo in the movie, right?
Well, there's two left, right? So like there's only two, like, because this is X is going to be a trilogy.
Oh, is it going to be? I thought it was only going to be two.
No, I'm pretty sure it's a trilogy. Wow. I'm pretty sure the final one's a trilogy. By the way, it's fantastic. Jason Momoa was like the Joker in the last.
I loved it.
He was fantastic.
Yeah.
But
I didn't love the movie necessarily, but I did.
No, his role was great. The movie
was good.
I mean, those movies are starting to, it's like
5, 6, 7. I was like, these movies are great, and then after, the actor who played Brian, I forget the actor's name. After he passed,
Paul Walker.
Then they kind of dovetailed a little bit. So
we're very like Rocky 5, Rocky Balboa era of this franchise.
I stand for Rocky Balboa.
You're cool, Balboa.
I was okay. So you got to think about my age. So in 1985.
Yeah.
I am 9 years old.
Yeah.
And my first memory of going to the movies is 1983, Return of the Jedi. Dad pulls me out of school, Friday matinee, Return of the Jedi. That's like the best thing ever, right?
Yeah.
And so sort of similar for Rocky 4. Dad pulls me out of school, matinee, Rocky 4 on the big screen. I'm 9 years old and it's amazing. Rocky 3 was the year before Return of the Jedi. I saw it on the big screen, and Mr. T was like the most intimidating man of all time.
Yeah.
And then I watched WrestleMania 2 and was like, well, Mr. T's not really that tough. Roddy Piper but so like that is my time frame. So Rocky 5 comes out and it is just a dog. It is such a bad movie. And so now from Rocky 5 would have been 1990. And then so we get 16 years between Rocky 5 and Rocky Balboa. So I was fully ready. I was prepared. I wanted to see old man Rocky, and I really liked Rocky Balboa. So I was totally fine with it.
Hold on a second. Dude, I'm filming something, and you're making all this noise. Sorry about that. Got people walking in and out of the room here.
We're going to keep that one on video.
We should. That's fine.
I was completely. And then when you come back with Creed 1, what Creed 1 was a few years later. So that was fantastic. So they righted the ship. But yeah, I'm with you on Fast and Furious. But I want to see that moment. I want to see Rock. I want to see Cena. I want to see Batista.
It'd be nice to have them all on there just for the nerd factor of us, of like all wrestling fans that would go for something like that completely.
Yeah, totally. So the thing I wanted to kind of ask you about, and we'll go a little, we were kind of bouncing all over the place last time. I actually wanted to go back to the beginning of when I first heard of you.
Yep.
Now,
which I don't even know when that would be.
So I'm trying to think of when that was, but I just remember
something I did.
Well, honestly, it's the name, right? It's the name that stands out to me.
If you know the name,
as somebody who grew up, a little. I'm a little young for Three's Company, but catching up on syndication, I've probably seen every episode. But that name stands out as like, oh, like I get it. Like his wrestling name is a name of a character, but that character, he's not the most stand-up character in the world, right?
Correct.
He's a little sleazy, kind of like, he wants the girls, maybe not get the girl, but he's going to keep trying. Yes. Larry Dallas, Jack Trooper's best friend, though, so he had to be a quality human to be Jack Trooper's best friend. So what was the inspiration for you to utilize that name?
So I'm going to Collision tomorrow night, right? AEW Collision, with my friend David. And my friend David is the one who named me Larry Dallas.
Oh, wow.
He actually jokes that like I'm his creation because we both can't believe that it's gone where the hell it's gone to. But it used to be like his nickname for me because, he just thought, number one, he knew that it was a cool name from watching that show. But the day that like it became official that like I was Larry Dallas, we were on Mike Johnson at PW Insider used to do these bus trips to Ring of Honor.
Mm-hmm.
Where you'd go from Queens to Philadelphia at the Murphy Rec Center, which is where Ring of Honor was doing their early shows. So as this story goes, there was a Ring of Honor CZW doubleheader. We had front row to, I believe, both. But it's a long-ass day of wrestling, And even at that point, I was 19, maybe 20 years old, and I didn't want to sit there for 9 hours of wrestling. Neither one of us did. But anyway, we're on this whole thing, and there was this guy that was on the bus trip who lived in, I want to say Carmel, New York. And like where we were living at the time was Yorktown Heights. So it's about 30 minutes north or west or however you want to phrase that from us. So anyway, the kid comes up to me and he's like, hey, like, do you mind giving me a ride home from the bus, when we get there? And like, I'm so young. I'm still not ready for confrontation. So I'm like, I don't know. You got to ask my buddy Dave, Meanwhile, I'm driving. So this is the important part. I'm the one actually driving. I'm like, we got to ask David, figuring he'll say no. So we go to Dave. Dave's like, yeah, I don't have a problem with it. Whatever you want to do. So the guy walks away. I go, you idiot. I told him you were driving. Now I'm driving. I didn't want to take him. Like, what are we going to do here? And he's like, you really are freaking Larry Dallas, So we get on the bus and like I have Mike, we tell Mike like, hey, we're not going to be able to take the kid home. Just let him know. So like we pretend like we're sleeping. And the guy's on the phone with like his father, to have his father come pick him up in Queens from like an hour and a half away at like 3:00 in the morning. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, we are the worst human beings in the world. We get off the bus. The kid's like throwing up about something, like just throwing up. He was sick or whatever. And like David's checking on him. And I'm like a block down the street before like when he turns around to look for me. And it was one of those things where it just became like, that was my nickname.
Yeah.
So obviously when I got into wrestling, it became my name around like friends of that group. It was like Larry Dallas and all that stuff. When I got into wrestling, it just was, you needed a name. But it's so funny to me that like if I walked into a bar that I work at or I walk into a social situation I work at, people call me LD. Like no one calls me by my real name. Like Lawrence Musso is like a name that's like only been mentioned in the Observer and like a police blotter once or twice. Like it's not something that anyone knows me as. It's funny. Like grammar school friends call me LD. So like it's not even like it's Larry Dallas anymore. Now it's like LD. Like now, like I've shortened a nickname I stole from a TV show, and like whatever. And like if you Googled like Larry Dallas, like I'm like the 6th or 7th picture, like next to Richard Kline. Someone actually got me an autograph. This girl, Christine Coons, who's like was a local photographer in the tri-state area. Coons photographs. That's probably gonna get me in trouble, but no, the name is actually Coons Photographs. She met Richard Kline at like a convention.
Yeah.
And he signed the autograph. He goes, "To Larry Dallas, great name, Richard Kline." I have the 8x10 somewhere in a storage unit or somewhere. But yeah. So that's how it came about, and it just worked. And then like off of the MTV show, when Gabe had originally hired me, there was a guy, superstar Sean Davis, who was big in the Florida independent scene. Was an overweight, blonde, like total like Buddy Rose, like early 80s, Southern, like heel gimmick guy. Like they wore the pink and he was the sexiest guy in the world, but like, you know, he's a big fat guy. And like I was just gonna be like this character who was on TV who thought he was a big shot that was supposed to be behind Sean Davis. Sean Davis got fired like 3 shows in because he had a deal. Do you remember the Fred Wilpon, the Mets owners?
Uh-huh.
Do you remember the story about their son starting a wrestling promotion? Or was going to start a wrestling? That. So this is an actual thing. You can probably Google it. Wilpon's Wrestling or something like that. So this was like this big thing that was supposed to happen. That like this is my first like welcome to the business, kids. I'm driving with Sean. He's like, brother, you know. And Jimmy Jacobs taught me this very young too. Like the hey brother guys. Like that's why good brother now is like such a used term.
Yeah.
Because the old rib was like the hey brother guys were the guys that you never wanted to be around. They were just carny bastards. So like if anyone was in the car and you're young and you're starting out, you meet some guy like, hey brother, brother, we got this going on, or brother, we got that going on. The brother guys were the worst guys ever. And Sean was like telling about this whole story, and like, oh, we got this big promotion, man. I'm gonna take you with me, kid, right to the top, and all this stuff. And I'm like 3 shows in, I'm like, holy shit, this is all working out to my dreams. And like, he's fired. So I get to I get to the 4th show now. I've lost the lead guy of my act. Like this act is gone. I'm like, I'm fired already. Like. I get to Evolve 4. The main event was Bryan Danielson, Bobby Fish. This is when Bryan was fired from WWE before he went back to SummerSlam. He did a couple of shows with us.
Wow.
Evolve was his idea. Evolve was a brand new Bryan Danielson creation. So the opening thing on the format sheet is Bryan Danielson. The opening thing on the format sheet is I get kicked out of the building. And the final thing on the format sheet is I get kicked out of the building. I think both times by Bryan Danielson, whatever it was, right? So I'm like, I'm fired. Like, this is it. Like, I'm done. Like, my career is over. Like, 4 shows. I had a cup of coffee. And I remember, like, Bryan kicked my ass real hard out the door. I met him years ago at a Devils game when I was on Sirius. He was the WWE night thing. And he was like, hey, Larry Dallas, we're Evolve. I'm like, you got such a freaking memory to remember me. But so, yeah, I got kicked out of the building. Right. So this was the Ace Arena. It's a very small arena in Union, New Jersey, a real shithole with like a locker room that like is so tight. So I get kicked out of the arena. So I'm outside and I'm like pretending to be on the phone with like Sean. I'm like, they won't let me in the building. I'm putting on this whole show before the show starts to all these fans who don't know me. And I see Gabe like peeking out the door. They're filming this. I'm going off on this whole thing. Right. So the fans are all getting into it, whatever. Screw you, you're a nobody, you're a loser. Who are you? The whole thing. They go in. So I sneak back into the building to kind of watch the show from the locker room. Now, intermission's about to start. So I'm like, I got to get back outside so no one knows this. Now, it had torrentially downpoured while this was going on. Okay. I'm not wet. I sprint to my car because I was working out at the time. So I had all these water bottles in my car from the gym, and I drenched myself with all these water bottles. So the fans come back outside now for intermission and they see me soaking wet. They're like, you're still here? And they thought I was there the entire time. And like, I literally sold myself to Gabe like that one night with like those 2 different things we did. And it was like 4 little like segments in between the DVD, like that no one would ever remember. But, so like that was just how Larry Dallas was born. And then it literally became a thing where like, I was just to them, to Gabe, it was like, he's like, you got to bring women to the show. You got to bring women to the show. And that's how like the sleaziness character started. It was like, they wanted hot women. And it was my job to find attractive women that would come do shows with us to sell the gimmick, to sell the Playboy rich TV guy thing. And like, literally that all really started because I met Rebby Hardy, or Rebby Sky at the time, at a Giant game. And she had no idea who I was. I had no idea who she was. And that's what really launched everything was she's standing outside of a Giant game. She was a New York Giants girl. She was very like New York Giants famous. She was already Miss Howard Stern at this point.
Oh, no way. I didn't even know that.
She was Miss Howard Stern 2009 or something, maybe. So she was people knew her. And this is when that Lucha Libre show was on MTV2 or MTV3, like Lucha Libre USA. Not the Klein Rocks thing, a different one. And so she's talking to all these fans outside, and I'm, Joe Cocky over here. And I go walking up to her, I go, I gotta ask, like, why are all these people coming up to you? And she's like, I'm on some show on MTV. Just blows me off. I'm like, oh my God, you're not gonna believe this. Like, I was on a show on MTV, right? She's like, yeah, but it's some wrestling show. You wouldn't care. I'm like, I'm actually in wrestling. Like, I work in wrestling. Like, have you ever heard of this company, that company? She's like, yeah. I'm like, listen, I don't want to be like too forward. I go, can I have your email address so I can email you? Maybe CC Gabe. Maybe we can get you involved in a show or something like that. That way you don't think I'm just a guy looking for your number. Worked. Emailed her. We went back and forth. Gabe was never going to pay anybody at that women at that time, like, because he didn't have her booked. He wasn't. This is all me to figure out how to get her there.
Yeah.
So I knew she had done independent shows because she was training to wrestle. And I was like, hey, like, how much would it cost for you to come into the show? And she's like, oh, I normally make this. And I was like, done. And I was like, I will lose that money. Bet on this right now. This is our new thing. And we did like a Larry Dallas VIP party, like Evolve 6. And I remember we took a picture at like the next Giant game. So I put it in a frame. I had it on this like VIP section table. We had our couch. I had like bottles of champagne. And like me and her, we watched like all the action. And my friend's favorite part is like Moxley and Homicide did a match. And like we're like, Moxley was really Heath Ledger in this, like the gimmick up. And they're brawling all around the arena. And they're coming right towards my VIP section. And I move all the girls out of the way. But then I go run back and I grab my frame photo. And I hold on to it for dear life so they can just go wherever they want to. Just have my photo. But yeah, so that's how that really started for me. Getting things was that. So that's where like the Larry Dallas character that it became from all that. But it all, to answer the question 15 minutes later, was all off of my buddy who was a fan of Three's Company and thought that I was a sleazy car salesman that would do anything to get laid or get paid, like good old Larry Dalopoulos was in Three's Company.
So that time frame though, pro wrestling managers are not really around.
Nobody. I don't think. I mean, besides like the small indies, but I don't think anyone was in. Yeah, Prince Nana, obviously, right? Because he was in Ring of Honor from Jump Street. But for the most part, it was valets. There wasn't anybody else but Nana, maybe Nana and me.
Had you studied some previous guys who were like, we don't have any managers. I could reuse this stuff that worked so well back in the day.
Well, my my Facebook profile at the time, my college said the Ernie Roth School of Business. So that was like my wink and nod to anybody that like knew anything about history, because I thought it was just a cool moment. Obviously Bobby Heenan's always the apex for people. Or at least for me, he is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially commentary wise, like humor wise, all that stuff. I just adore Bobby. Cornette was never Cornette was great, but he was never like my flavor of what I was going for, or what I wanted to do. But yeah, but I also didn't get like a lot of, because I was hated so much by that fan base. They wanted no part of me. They thought I sucked, and I probably did, but they wanted no part of me. I was never cast with real over talent. I was with Gargano and Chuck Taylor early, and they got them away from me as quickly as possible. And then they gave me Scott Reed and Caleb Conley as a tag team. And that's pretty much what we did. And we were just undercard guys that did whatever. And we always brought out the women. And this is before everything kind of changed. But I remember even back then, like we'd have a different group of girls with us, like every show that we did. We had to go find them or get local talent. And we did like a really raunchy entrance, our first entrance, like WrestleMania weekend. We had like Amber O'Neil, Shelly Martinez, and God, who's the third girl? I'm going to forget her. This is so bad because whoever it is going to be so mad at me if they ever heard this. It was Shelly, it was Amber, and I do not remember the third one. Maybe Sassy Stephanie, maybe? I don't know. I forget the third one. I think it was Sassy Stephanie, who's retired. But we'd always ask, we'd be like, hey, listen, like this is how our entrance is supposed to go. Like, what are you comfortable with? Like, this is super uncomfortable to ask strangers. Like, are you okay with kissing the guys when you get out there? Are you okay with grinding on us? Are you okay with doing, the Eiffel Tower, getting in the ring spot, like when we get in for the entrance? And like everyone was always like, yeah, no, it's fine. It's all show business. And it was just something that we did. But that was always the pain in the ass because every town we went to, we had to find a girl or find a group of girls. And it sucked so much having to do that. Like me and Caleb once went to like a mall and like found a girl at a mall. We're like, hey, we're like talent scouts. You want to be on pay-per-view tonight? Because we were like on an pay-per-view, like watched by 50 people. So that was like our selling point. We got people to work for free and go out there and do this stuff. But I don't regret like that gimmick or any of that stuff. But like there was no money in it. But through that, like especially through the Rebby connection, I met Dave LaGreca because she was on Busted Open early. And that's how I got the Busted Open gig. So, and that's where, like, I think that was really like as much as I loved Evolve and I did stuff in Evolve and that got me Dragon Gate, and that relationship changed my life, obviously, back in 2012. And all the great wrestlers I got to work with and meet, you know, it's getting on the radio that was what really, I think, made my personality shine for people, or people start to appreciate knowledge or anything. Because other than that, I was just a $75 payday on a show, taking up payroll. But that was, you know, but I was also the guy that like coordinated travel. You know, I was the Candido Dark Side.
Yeah.
Like the coordinating the airlines and stuff. Dude, I like every road trip we went on, man, that was me renting a car, and it was my Amex paying for all that gas, getting paid back a month, you know, getting paid back. It's like the bills due the 28th, and like the 27th, I don't have the whatever. American Express actually at one point gave me like a $80,000 credit limit because they thought I had more money. They thought I had so much money because like I remember we bought like a bunch of new cameras or something, and Sal, like, I gave Sal my Amex one day. He's like, I needed to book hotels. I'll pay you back. I'm like, all right, like, you know, you're my boss, and like he just always paid back.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like ran up $4,000. I got $4,000. I'm like, you know, so all of a sudden it progressively became like all of a sudden I looked at the statement, I'm like, there's $26,000 charged, like New Orleans. I'm like what? Like how much money did you spend? And it's like, I think $26,000 was paid, you know, like that next month. So American Express gave like a 26 or 27-year-old me like an $80,000 credit limit one day, which was the worst idea ever.
It's dangerous.
I could have been gone. I could have just I would have totally like suffered 7 years of bad credit to like blow through $80,000 once in my life, but I never did. But yeah, no. So that was but yeah, those were the times. That's just all that's just that career. That's just that era of things. But I don't look back on that era fondly because, again, like I think I didn't understand the internet hatred. I hated the internet people for what they were saying. I didn't care in the sense like I went home and was like, oh, poor me, or like got sad about it. But I just became very combative with people, and I tried to play it off and go back at everybody, and go back at everybody, and go back at everybody. And that's really never a good strategy for long-term popularity or growth. You know, the best thing you can do in this business is probably get as many people on the internet on your side to help you, promote you. Rather than piss off everybody or piss on everybody, and then just hope that they still watch you after they book you and stuff like that. You know, it's just things you learn that I wish. Have you ever watched Vanderpump Rules? That took over Wednesday nights for a couple of weeks because of everything that was going on. Yeah, because that when that became the Scandival, took over my viewing on Wednesdays with the X.
Because so when Scandival happened, you know, that it became the thing. But I'd always heard about Vanderpump previously because I like reality TV. There's some hosts on the Ringer who are reality TV, and you know they be talking about the challenge, which
is great.
I love the challenge.
You and our fans, yep.
But then they would also talk about Vanderpump, and so I tried watching Vanderpump. I got through the first episode like 2 or 3 different times, just never got, it never became part of the rotation. So earlier this year when all that stuff was happening, I was like, you know what? I'm at least going to get through the first season. Like there's got to be something in this show that is going to hook me as a reality TV show fan. So it did. Now I passively watch it. I don't sit there and watch it, and like take notes or anything, but it's kind of on in the background when I'm doing other stuff. And the character of Jax Taylor, if you watch the early on, I don't even know if he's still on the show, but he's originally he's Stassi's boyfriend in the show.
Google him.
But what you are describing as your character is Jax Taylor on Vanderpump, which is why I was wondering if you'd ever seen it, because he now you're not a sleazy human. He's a little bit of a sleazy human, but he's the bartender guy. He's, talking to women, and he's doing the deep V on the shirt so that he can get better tips. And
Yeah.
he's a very likable character because of his personality, but he does really bad stuff. So I know I would imagine the Vanderpump community dislikes him, but
I used to get spray tanned before all the shows, right? Because like I wanted to be, because fat looks better cooked than it does raw. The old Arn Anderson saying. So like I remember the first time I went to the tanning salon, and I was like, I need to get spray tanned. They're like, how dark? I'm like, as dark as humanly possible. Like I want to be tan. And that became like a part of my routine. I'd go to the same at a tanning girl that would like spray me, because that's also uncomfortable to sit there in your freaking boxer briefs in front of a very attractive young woman. And get sprayed, with tanning stuff. But like early on, I would go out like the days before I had a show or the night before I had a show, and I would totally just like try to play the character out in the world to see what the reaction was from people. I'd be like, all right, I'm like, that's totally douchey enough that people were that's going to work. That's going to work. To the point where like people that like me, that have met me like through the years, like, I didn't like you when I first met you. I thought you were a douchebag. I'm like, yeah, I was just practicing how to be one on public. But like, I took everything that I didn't let it, like, I took the worst of what I saw people do at bars, like the most obnoxious people. And I was like, this is how I'll just be. And I'm like, that's how you become a heel. And that's how you get that kind of heat. But it's just, I don't know if it's a good again, I think it's better to be liked by people as a person, which I thankfully am now for the most part. But, it's not a good strategy in life.
Okay. So I had some other things that I wanted to talk to you about. Now, I won't keep you as long this time as last time.
Yeah, whatever you want.
But
read a book.
Exactly. As far as wrestling is concerned today, now I imagine when you were younger, like you were just like, I could watch wrestling all day long, not get tired of it. Give me more. Because that's how I was when I was younger.
Yeah, that's all I did.
And now we live in a world where they are giving us more. And, I don't know what your itinerary is for this weekend. Thankfully, well, not thankfully, because I wanted to watch some stuff, but I'm celebrating my anniversary on Saturday, later today, when people listen to this.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But there is Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford, the fight. There is UFC 291, which is like a must-see show for me.
Yep.
There is Collision with Adam Cole and MJF against FTR. There is still G1 stuff this weekend. There's Great American Bash for WWE NXT on Sunday. So, and if you want to dig deep, I'm sure there's Stardom stuff. Like there's like you cannot turn on your television and not have wrestling if you want it.
Yeah.
Where are you with how much stuff there is out there to watch now? And do you feel pressured to watch it, or have you kind of created a system where you're like, hey, I'm going to watch the stuff that I want to watch, and I'm not going to get too deep?
Every Thursday there's a match of the week posted by a certain somebody in a newsletter, and that's usually good enough for like, I'm like, all right, I can watch this week and know what's going on. I'm going to Collision tomorrow because it's in Connecticut, and I got some tickets sent to me, so like I'm bringing my buddy, so we're gonna be that tomorrow. If this was a normal Saturday night and I wasn't bartending and that was the itinerary, for me it would be a Buffalo Wild Wings night, UFC on, and the boxing fight on, so I can watch both.
Yeah.
And then wrestling would take a very, very big back door on that. If I was working the bar, what I would do is I would always put on, when I used to work Sunday nights, I always put on the WWE Network for the pay-per-views. And everyone came out, the people that weren't wrestling fans would come out and watch it. And like that's how I would end up watching a lot of the pay-per-views if I was working. I would watch it casually with people there. But it's so hard to keep up with everything, man. Like I'm not watching, I mean, they would have hired me by now, so I could probably say whatever I want. But like I'm not watching 3 hours of Raw on Monday. I'm just not. Tuesday NXT is like very skippable, especially since like a lot of the guys that would be reasons I watched are not there anymore, because they're guys I came up with that I would support. I'd watch to see how good they're doing. Dynamite to me, before Vanderpump took over that slot, was always must watch. on Wednesdays. But like now, like Dynamite to me is still something that I DVR, and if I hear it's great, I want to watch and catch up on. Rampage is never getting watched. SmackDown's probably the best show on TV, and I follow this storyline.
Yeah,
but like it's not, again, I'm not watching it on a Friday night.
Right.
So it's all hard. It's hard to have a life, and if you watch sports or do anything else with your life, like, you know, like if the Knicks are playing and it's, you know, NXT, like I'm watching the Knicks. Now the Mets being as bad as they are, you have a shot to have me for the next month and hook me on something. But I think for me, again, like I read every week the Observer.
Yeah.
I know what's going on.
Yeah.
Ideally, especially now that I'm like the past 5 weeks I had class, like, right, and I just finished my summer courses, so like I had no time to do anything. Like ideally, I would like to be in a place where I could watch all the major stuff, right? Just like that is like 2 years from now when I'm out of MRI tech school, and like that's my, like I'm going to get back to, like, I'm going to be able to watch all the regular stuff, but you can't watch everything and have a life, you know, and then I have to follow, I have to actually keep up to date on AAA. You know, like that's something I have to watch their stuff every week. That's my job. That's my, you know, I'm contracted to that company. So that's something I have to watch. Everything that goes on with them. I would love to watch Dragon Gate more, you know, but it's just, you know, it's so late and it's so hard. You know, New Japan, like, again, it's something that I'm subscribed to. And you know, but I don't watch it all the time, but I'll never cancel it. Yeah, it's just nice to have it there. But like ideally, yeah. But I think about that all the time. Like if I was still on Busted Open and like my job was to talk wrestling 3 hours every morning, like how do you have a life? Like how does Dave have a life? Like Dave talks about going out places. I'm like, how do you do that? Like how do you go to a concert? Like you read a book every week, you know, and you watch.
You know, what it is his working day is like from when he wakes up. Yeah. So when he goes to bed, so he's going to get, you know, 15, 16 hours out of a day. And, you know, 3 of those will be watching actual content,
which is cool.
And, you know, that works for him. It's worked for him forever, but he, you know, he does take his evenings off a couple times a week so that he does have a life.
It's too much for anybody. And it's, at this point, you're picking your flavor of ice cream and that's what you're going to do. You know, it's just, I don't think there's anybody on the planet besides the people that are super antisocial and are very comfortable being home. You know, the not to copy the internet, but the not touch grass crowd. you know, which is a very funny line, but like, you know, also kind of mean. Like,
yeah, it is. It's funny and it's mean. Yeah.
Funny and mean, but it's still funny because, you know, comedy can be mean and funny.
Yeah.
But like it's like outside of those people, who could possibly do that? I mean, again, we talked with Dave 2 weeks ago. 14, 15-year-old me would have never developed social skills.
Yeah.
If I had all this content that I could watch. Because it was bad enough. I was watching jobber matches every week, you know, like, and I still watched it every week. Like, you know, like my Saturday morning was taped ECW the night before, because on the MSG network, you never knew when it was coming on.
Oh,
so you set, because obviously Knicks, Rangers, West Coast would.
You had to set like a whole 6 hours aside.
Yes, you would tape from midnight to 6 a.m. Wake up, fast forward, and pray that ECW came on at some point. Otherwise, you were never getting to watch that week's episode. And everyone in New York knows that problem that I'm talking about. And obviously, it was a regional thing, so it was on different networks for people. But then I
was always so jealous of the MSG network because you guys would get WWE stuff that no one else could ever see.
It was great. It was great.
I was so jealous.
It was so cool to go whenever, like, my father would take me, or my mother would take me to MSG, because I saw Hogan Flair at MSG. You know, and then you watched it like a month later because they never aired it that night. They aired it like a couple weeks later on the MSG network. But like, yeah, so like you would, like, your Saturday morning for me would be like, that was whatever when you woke up. Then there was a Live Wire or Mania at like 10 a.m. Then Superstars of Wrestling was at like noon. Then American Gladiators was at 1 p.m. I had to watch American Gladiators because that show was awesome. Then there was WMAC Masters, which was that fake karate show. That came on right after that, with like Hakeem Machine Alston and like all these characters. It was so perfectly in like the American Gladiator. It was like so perfectly slotted where it was slotted. And then like they would probably literally be either playing like video games or watching whatever tapes I had that I wanted to watch. So like, and then Saturday night was, WCW Saturday night at 6:05. And then like you had like think about what we had a lot back then too, if you think about it, because we had Saturday night at 6:05, you had Worldwide.
Yeah, a lot of the syndicate. If you had the syndication,
Pro.
then but the problem with the syndication is a lot of times you would see the same stuff over and over and over.
Yeah, it never, none of it mattered. Like there was nothing that was major on it. Like the major show that mattered, you had to watch like prime time. When I was a kid and I wasn't up that late.
Which was the precursor to Raw.
Precursor to Raw. But then when Raw came on, I mean, that was every Monday night that was religious. I mean, I still remember the Intercontinental title battle royal when Razor and Martel were like the last two, and they had to face the next week. Like that battle royal, like we taped that show because I had those standardized testing that you had every year in the public schools. It's like the most important test of the year, like messenger intelligence.
Yeah.
It's like meant nothing. So like I couldn't stay up for Raw. My parents wouldn't let me, so I had to go to sleep. And the VCR didn't tape it.
Oh man,
dude, that was like my lost tape for like I couldn't wait to see the battle royal. I didn't get to see the biggest battle royal at like 6 years old. Like that's heartbreaking. It was an obsession. So if I had the level of obsession I have now and I had this much wrestling to watch, I would never be out of the house.
Well, here's the thing for me, which is, I'm asked to help Brian, who is having a child, and sub in and do these shows with Dave. And this is pre AEW, right? So we only have, Raw and SmackDown
and New Japan
and New Japan, but there's no AEW. WWE Network version of NXT. So the amount of things that I had to keep an eye on were so much less. And now here we are. Gosh, how long have we been doing this show with Dave now? 4 years or whatever.
Has it been that long? I've been listening.
Yeah. And now the actual what's expected, and it's not because they tell me to watch, but it's because I want to keep on the up and up, and I want to make sure that I'm understanding of what's going on. It's doubled. I feel like it's absolutely doubled as far as what I have to keep an eye on.
I used to, because obviously like when I was working serious, like my last contract was like I was making like $175 an episode, doing like 3 to 5 episodes a week. So like I wasn't making like life-changing money, but it was good. It was good enough, to keep me going. But I was still bartending, and everything like that. I had a social life, but like I had to, I had to still make money other places. So like there were times I would get on the train to the city and be watching like whatever TV from the night before on my phone.
Yeah.
Like on my way in. That was the only way I would get it done, was like watching whatever I had to watch. Because again, you were going on for radio and you can't fake content when you're talking about or breaking down. Like Colin Cowherd does that all the time. Like the national media guys, God bless them. They got their bag. Like I will never knock them, forget that they got their money. And like, that is great. But there is absolutely no value returning that money, because the amount of things that they say that are so piss poor and accurate just sound like just say you didn't watch like Texas Southern, like you don't have to tell me that the quarterback from Texas Southern has the best arm. The chance that you watched enough tape on that guy to know what you're talking, like, and it's all the time with those national guys. It's like, I watched. You can't. It's like, I can't watch every wrestling thing. You can't watch every college football game.
So my buddy Paul, who was on the segment right before this, we previewed UFC.
Oh, Fontaine?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fontaine. So he and I just had this discussion off air, because he said that, he's like, when I listened, because he listens to a lot of podcasts. He has a wide range of things that he listens to. And he's like, I have an ear for when people are BSing that they actually watch something, because I can tell, because I've heard all of the other takes that they are parroting. And whether it's Dave's take or it's Brian's take or it's, whatever other wrestling podcast you listen to, he's like, I listen to enough and I can actually tell when they're BSing and that they actually haven't watched it. They're just parroting what they have heard.
Yeah.
And that's where you don't want to be, right? Because
then why would I listen to you?
Right.
Then I'm reading then I'm literally reading like a carbon copy of someone else. It's like, there's no, it's why I don't understand why people read like Ringside News or like other places that like literally just take other, like, thank God for podcasts. And there are probably no wrestling website businesses anymore outside of like the pay ones.
Yeah.
Because they just take quotes from podcasts and like it's their news story. And it's like, do you get anything out of that? Like, and if I'm reading something, and again, this is what we were talking about before we went on air, but if I'm reading a quick quote of something from like the Observer, I naturally, me personally, have to now go find out what that whole story was, right?
Yeah.
Like I can't just read and be like, oh, okay, well, I gotta say, that would drive me nuts. The completist in me, it would drive me, like, you're talking to a guy that had to beat like Red Dead Redemption 2 like 100% because like number one, I was bored. Number two, like just the idea of like not completing the game fully was like, this is not. I couldn't function doing that. So that's just, I don't know. People do it, but it's not my cup of tea, man. Like, you gotta go out there and be authentic and know what you're talking about, or just don't talk about it. It's very easy not to talk about things. Like, you don't have to have an opinion on everything. I have no idea what goes on with most of the world. Like, I didn't know why Russia invaded Ukraine until it became a thing. I didn't know I couldn't even tell you where Ukraine was, before that happened. And so you don't have to have an opinion on everything. Like, I see it all the time. Like, people talk about all the news stories that like fentanyl and all this stuff. It's like everyone has these opinions immediately. It's like, dude, you probably don't know anything about this shit. It's like, why are you talking about it? Like, and they just do. It's so annoying. It's like when that like cat litter lady, the school, like, oh, they're letting her go to the bathroom in a litter box because she identifies. It's like, that story was never anywhere. But people read something, it's like, oh, let's be like, don't you want to dig in a little bit more, or like talk about something that what you're talking about? Like, that would be my biggest fear in life, would be getting up publicly and speaking, or getting on something like this and speaking, and not knowing what I'm talking. Like, that to me would be devastating. I don't care if you think I suck, but at least you'll think I suck. But I knew that. But like, I knew what I was talking about, or I understood what the product. If I didn't know things, I couldn't talk. I couldn't do it. I would not go on a podcast about soccer. I have no idea. I couldn't even tell you any of the teams in the World Cup, Women's World Cup. I don't know the sport, and I wouldn't pretend to. And every day you put on the sports channels, now everyone's a soccer expert again. It's like 4 times every 2 years they become women's experts, they become men's experts, and they're not. And it's okay to not be. Just say you don't know a sport. Stephen A. Smith does it all the time with MMA. Yeah. Right? It's like, dude, you're great. You're making so much money. You don't have to pretend like you know what this is too. Like, it's let somebody else get
his boxing and his MMA takes are a little off.
Putrid.
So this I want to thank you for coming back on back-to-back weeks, because I'm doing nothing.
I'm reading a book. That's really what I'm doing.
This has been a lot of fun. And before we get to the last thing I want to ask you about, because I think it's kind of cool to kind of wrap your story around and come back to kind of what you're doing right now, which is very interesting to me as far as, going back and getting your education. But, if I probably, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's somebody in radio who has all these different podcast partners, but I counted the other day because I do so many different shows. So obviously Dave Meltzer, John LaRocca, Andrew Zarian are people that I do wrestling stuff with. Yeah. And then I have my son, I have my buddy from college, Brad, doing Giant stuff, and then another friend doing 49er stuff. So I have like 6 podcast partners.
That's a lot.
And if I had room for another show, like you and I could do this like every week. And
I have no problem.
It'd be a ton of fun.
Yeah.
And look, if something falls off and I need another idea, I'm coming to you first.
That's fine.
But just the fact that you can do this and it's very natural to you. Obviously, you had a radio career. I
didn't have any experience in either of those, so that came from nowhere too. Everything I've done came from nowhere. Yeah, and you're a broadcaster today and doing your stuff with play. So obviously there is an enjoyment. There's a love. Mm-hmm. You're speaking. Your personality. You know how to utilize it. And that takes me to what you're doing now as far as going back to school. What are you going back to school for? To be a radiology tech, like MRI technician.
Which is completely different from
night and day different. Yeah, it's very different. But COVID taught me that, man. For me, and a lot of it's my own, there are things that have happened that are out of my control, right? Like COVID in Japan, out of my control. Busted open probably was going to happen the way it was going to happen no matter what I did. But, I probably could have done, you can always work harder. Wrestling, right? There's only so many no's you can take. There's only so many AAA's coming to America deals that you can take. And, bartending for me as a guy who became very susceptible to substance abuse because of the access that I had to a lifestyle of being up late and having a lot of days of having nothing to do, and the depression that comes from feeling like you didn't succeed at certain things, or the depression that comes from certain things getting taken away from you, and having so much access to certain things. It got to a point where I was sitting there, I'm like, I'm 38 years old. Like what am I going to do with the rest of my, am I going to always be chasing the next dollar or the next contract or next anything? And I saw a friend of mine had posted a part-time position for whatever thing in the medical field she does. And the hourly was insane. Like when I was bartending at my peak, like a year ago, I was making I'm talking probably $1,400 to $2,000 a week cash.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was not a poor man. I wasn't a rich man. I wasn't Elon Musk, but I was not a poor man. But again, I was working 50 hours a week and I'm up 16 hours and I'm not sleeping and everything's suffering. And I was like, I got to do something that's what's secure, that I'm not going to go work in an office again. That's miserable work to me. Having some flexibility and freedom to still artistically do what I want to do outside of work is the most important thing to me. Money's probably, secondary. I think freedom probably comes first for me. Money second. So it was what's a career that I can do that is going to pay me a good amount of money? I'll have some security in life. And because when I got back from Japan with COVID, I couldn't go bartend because New York was absolutely shut down. I wasn't going back to Japan, and I had no money left to my name. So I ended up working at Home Depot for $15 an hour, in a lumber department. And I was like, what the fuck happened in my life? What am I doing here? I got a college degree. I'm a smart guy. I got a personality. Can't be because it all got taken. I said to myself, I will never be here again. I will never sit here again and be this low, be this broke. And I had no idea what I was going to do. I was I'll just bartend, make a lot of money, put it and start saving. And then, things happened obviously. And then it's I just said, I got to get a career behind me. And MRI tech, I was well, it's 12-hour days, 3 days a week at a hospital. If you get a hospital job in New York City, it's, probably it's a 6-figure job. That gives you 4 days. For me, I'm that's 4 days a week that I can do whatever else I want to do. I can bartend 1 day a week. I can, go milk cows. I can, whatever the hell interests me that day is that was so appealing to me. But I had to go, so I had to call, I had to apply, I had to do all this stuff. Lenny Leonard actually wrote my recommendation letter to the school. So I started SUNY Manhattanville in September, but I had to take, the hard part was I had my bachelor's in business. So I had most of the stuff that obviously people that have gone to college or are going to go to college, the first 2 years are fluff. Right. Then you pick your major and you start going towards that. And you have the prereqs that you have to get on top of the fluff bullshit that you had to pay for no reason, which is my biggest problem in college, that you pay for a lot of fat on that steak. They're charging you for a filet mignon and they're giving you about 5 pounds of fat that you have to cut around to get to the meat that you want, which I think is complete bullshit. But so I got accepted, but I had to take some prereqs. So I had to take psychology, developmental psychology, and anatomy and physiology too, which is really hard. Really hard, especially for a guy like me, because I'm in there with all these 20-something-year-old kids that have been doing biology and all this other shit, and I haven't touched science in 20-something years. And since it's summertime, it's not a regular college semester. It's a 5-week course.
Yeah. So
I was in 3 days a week of anatomy and physiology class. I had 3 tests on yesterday. All my finals. I had 3 tests yesterday. I had a test Tuesday, a practical Tuesday, where I had to know 96 parts of the respiratory, urinary, and digestive system, and you had to identify my models and know how to spell them and all that crap, which I somehow got an 86 on. I have no idea how I got an 86 on it, because I'll tell you right now, like in an AP courses, psychology was a breeze. That was bullshit. Like, right, that's all just talking about that type of cognitive stuff, like taking information like that in, talking about why people do things. I can do that all day. That was like I got like a B in psychology, and I got like an A in developmental psych, anatomy and physiology, which I need to get a C+ in all these courses to get the program I'm going for. And I'm fucking just broke up with my girlfriend. I'm bartending. I have class 3 days a week, 8 hours a day, and I'm working on a new living situation. So I'm not with the girlfriend, so I have to go figure all that stuff out. So I have anatomy and physiology 3 days a week for 8 hours a day. I have a lecture course for 3 hours, lab course for 3 hours. Dude, I got like an 80 on the first test, a 60 on the second test, a 90 on the third test, a 52 on the fourth test.
Oh man!
Like, dude, like the teacher goes, you can't make this easy on yourself, can you? I'm like, I don't have time to process all the information you're giving me. Like, I have 3 days to remember all this shit. I got like a life that I'm living, and I don't know how I fucking pulled it off, dude. But like in the last week, I just. It was like 87, like 90. I was like, I did it. I don't know how. Like I'm telling you right now, I don't know how. And like the kids were all laughing at me as I was talking to them all about things. I have no idea like about any of this stuff because they're going in. These kids I don't know how to study. I haven't studied in years.
Yeah,
you know. But yeah, no. So it's just I want a career. I want a pension. I want something that's fallbackable. But I also want the freedom to still, I can broadcast till I'm 60.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and that's kind of what I was getting back to, which is you are creating a path for a career and also the freedom to do stuff on your free time, the things that you really enjoy, a little bit of money, hustling money. Yes. And that is kind of what you've done. Like the idea that, pretty much the story that you've told me is you were making things work. It wasn't easy, but you were making ends meet because you're hustling and you're street smart and you're kind of figuring things out and being like, hey, I need to be able to do this. But now you're creating a career where the other part of you that you are very good at, which is being street smart and hustling and making things work, that's going to be additive. That's not going to be
correct.
That's not going to be what's going to make or break,
correct.
Your month. That's going to be the gravy for you, which I think is
pressure free, and it'll be fun, and it'll be like it's like to take that pressure off yourself finally of the dream and the chase and like I love the grind more than anybody. Trust me, I wouldn't do it as long as I have if I didn't love the grind. There's something sick about me that loves the challenge, that loves that getting up in the morning and having to like create an enemy, create a doubter to go out and succeed at something. But and for school, my biggest doubter was me. You know, like could I do this? I didn't think I could do it, and then I did it. It's like, holy shit, like you can do this. But yeah, no, it's just I'll give myself. I don't want to be one of those guys that's like dead at 42 because their dream died or they accomplished all their dreams and life had no value or substance past it. I don't have kids. I'm probably never going to have kids. I'm not a guy that needs another human being to make my life meaningful. I get meaning out of being able to do what I want to do and the enjoyment I get out of that. So to give myself a career where I'm locked down, but I have so much freedom on the other end of it. I'll trade 3 days a week, and then for 4 days of freedom any day of the week, man. And if I want more money, I can take the overtime. But if I want to go to Tijuana because AAA needs me, or I want to go to Kobe, for a Dragon Gate show, I can go. And like that again, that's the sickness. That's like the guy. Like I just want the freedom to still be able to do what I want to do, and that's while still securing the bag, as the kids say. So it's just a decision I had to make. It's gonna be a rough 2 years. Like I just have to not drown for the next 2 years, but I haven't drowned yet. So.
It's going to be worth it, and you're going to get something out of being able to complete it too about yourself.
Oh, I'll be so stress-free afterwards.
But also, you're gonna have a feeling of accomplishment, right? You're gonna be able. You set a goal, you started this thing, and you're gonna finish it, and you're gonna feel like, oh, I can actually do anything now. Like I accomplished this really hard thing, and the next thing that you look at. You're going to be like, okay, it's going to be hard too, but I have this previous experience of accomplishing and I know I'm going to get through it now.
The only goal I always said, it's the most morbid thing I've ever said to people. But it's like, but I meant it. I mean it when I say it. but I think goals have to evolve also. But I said, like, the only goal I've never achieved in life, be it dating or life or career, is literally like never signing with WWE. That's the only thing I've never actually can check off my list. Otherwise, if you had a list of things that mattered to me that I said I wanted to do, everything I ever want to do is checked off. Right? So like, so if I died tomorrow, my life, I have a very completed dash, right? That dash is very complete. Like, I don't need to live to 90 to say like, oh, I saw the world. No, I can do whatever I want to do. But you have to evolve your goals.
Yep.
You have to give yourself reasons to wake up in the morning, reasons to keep on working. Why do football players get paid $60 million and still work out as hard as they do? Because they set a goal. The human brain has to evolve. And you learn that in psychology. I'm just repeating crap that I learned. But your brain has to, you have to evolve your brain. You have to, like, everything in your brain is so weird, right? Like, your brain takes like 3 weeks. Like, it's like scientifically proven that like however you're feeling today will have no impact on how you feel 3 months from now, right? So it's like, because I just read this in a book, and I'm reading this other book, The 4 Agreements, which Jimmy Jacobs had like recommended to me. And there was this quote in this book, where like human beings are the only species that punish themselves multiple times for a mistake. Like if a deer got caught in a fence and got cut or got injured, it would be like, that sucks, and it will never think about that again. They will never blame themselves for that mistake again. Human beings will think about their mistakes over and over and over and over again. In the same way, your goals should constantly evolve, because you have to keep your mind. You just have to keep your mind fresh, man. 6 podcasts, that's great. That's a lot of time. That's a lot of time occupied on a clock. Like, that's what you need to me, at least. I like being busy like that.
No, it's a great story. And based off of the feedback from the last show that we did, got a lot of people rooting for you. They like you, and you know,
they being liked.
They you know, the thing is like, Larry just comes off as a real dude. Like, that's the feedback that I get. Yeah. So
my friend said that to me when I was on Sirius. He's like, I put you on one day listening to you. He's like, I'm like, dude, I was so proud. He's like, I'm sitting there listening. I go, that's my boy. Like that's the same guy I know and hung out with and whatever. He goes, that he's like, he's not changing. He's not putting on an act, not changing for anything. You know, you're a great. Just gonna be ironic, but you're a great dude to have a beer with. You know, which I'm really not. But I was, until I'm not. Yeah. Yeah. So it's just, again, it's one of those things. I love doing this. I love talking wrestling. I love bullshit with people. It occupies my brain. You know, me and Samantha, we talk about this all the time. Like she wishes that she had hobbies, and I see this with people all the time. People that don't have hobbies, it's a very hard thing. I don't know how they get through life, like not having an interest that they're passionate about, that they want to talk about. I don't know. I couldn't live like that. Like, having wrestling as an anchor, as much of a heartbreak as wrestling is to me, is the greatest blessing that the Creator ever gave me. It's the reason why I never did drugs. It's the reason why I never did it, because I wanted to do wrestling. It's just whatever. It's an anchor, man. But so when I kneecap Little Rocca in a couple of weeks, I'll get his because I can't take Zarian's job. He has all the business numbers. That's way too complicated for me. I don't want to take on that much information, but maybe I'll kneecap Little Rocca once in a while. Just come on.
Well, yeah, if I need help, I know where to go. If one of my co-hosts is off for the week, I know where to go. Yeah. But best of luck, and we'll keep in touch. And
of course,
whenever
happy anniversary.
Yeah, thank you. Whenever you have something to plug, or whenever you're going to do another AAA show, we'll come on and we'll talk about it. So
yeah, well, when we come to America eventually,
that expansion's
coming, baby.
Since the 90s, baby.
Get myself fired one of these days for saying